All right. So there we go. This is our Q&A Friday. My name is Benjamin Krause. We're going to be talking a lot about veteran readiness and employment. It is my favorite benefit that the Department of Veterans Affairs provides to disabled veterans in this continental and international system that we call the Department of Veterans Affairs Veteran Readiness and Employment Program, which provides veterans benefits for vocational retraining and other fantastic opportunities to veterans worldwide, not just in the continental United States, but also in a variety of other locations, so long as you are entitled to benefits. I am a veteran VA-accredited attorney and happen to use the Department of Veterans Affairs to not only complete my undergrad degree, but also my law degree to become a lawyer and then VA-accredited attorney. I've been doing this for almost 10 years as an attorney, but also much longer as an advocate and working as a journalist, investigative reporter, doing a variety of other things that impact veterans and the Department of Veterans Affairs. If you have a question about what we're going to be talking about today, which is again Q&A Friday, if you happen to have questions, definitely feel free to ask those within the group. There's also a location in the streaming software I'm using that allows me to see it, or at least should allow me to see it. If I don't happen to see it, I will double check later because sometimes, as we all know with technology, things don't always work. Now, I'm assuming everybody can hear me because the system says that you can, but if not, let's see here. I'll turn it up just a smidge just in case. So hopefully that is sufficient. Anyway, we're going to be talking a little bit today about a few different topics that veterans have regularly had. I put some of this information in the stream, but basically we're going to be talking about retroactive induction. We're going to be talking about the whether you have to attend school full time and what that might mean. We're going to talk about, let's see, appeals questions. There's basically a whole list of things that some of the group members that we have on Facebook have put in. So we have on Facebook a group of almost 39,000 veterans that have been here since the beginning and added to our group over the past, I think it's been 12 years, 13 years, 14 years. Holy cow. So we started the group back in 2009, and by we, I mean me. I was a solo band at that point, and the group has really grown leaps and bounds. We've had a lot of doctors, lawyers, psychologists, dentists, like you name it, come through that group and are all there providing feedback when able. It's a fantastic group. It's the only one like it that's created by a VA accredited attorney and now managed by us. So there's a lot of people that have become doctors of some kind or have some kind of doctoral training, some kind of master's training, graduate training, etc. There's a lot of us in the group. So if you are not a member, definitely feel free to reach out because that's really one of the primary ways to for me to see it because as we all know with social media and other destinations, it's really difficult to try to be everywhere at once. Only God can do that. I cannot. So Facebook is a great spot to reach me. If you happen to want to read more about what we are working on, then I would encourage you to check out our website, which is disabledveterans.org. That is where you can see my work as a journalist and also comments and whatnot from other veterans about some of what we're finding within the news and within other investigations affecting veterans across the country and across the world. Now, we also have my law firm website, which is different. It is benjaminkrauselaw.com. So veterans with specific legal-oriented questions, if you have a legal-oriented question about an appeal, feel free to reach out there. We provide free case evals for veterans who are interested in learning more about their particular denial, especially involving voc rehab, but also disability compensation, med mal. We're doing a few different things that are also not discussed on the website that I can get into in a different time, but involving investigations, involving Freedom of Information Act requests, and related topics. So anyway, having said all that and doing my introduction, again, this is Q&A Friday. And my name is Benjamin Krause. I'm a VA-accredited attorney. Been doing this for a very long time. We have a large group on Facebook. And if you want to check it out, feel free to go there. If you look in the summary of or the metadata for this video, the way to get there should be pretty easy. It's basically facebook.com/groups/Voc Rehab. That'll get you there. Then you just put in the request to join, and we will hopefully approve it as long as you provide the information that we request. Anyway, so having said all that, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes here. I'm just going to go through the list since there is quite a long list, and we have a lot of different questions. So starting from the top, let's see here. So Mike Daly asks about having a conversation with military transition, and wouldn't mind having me on his podcast. Mike, be happy to be on your podcast with you. I always take time when possible to talk about my experiences and experiences of other veterans on a podcast. I find it to be just practically the best thing since sliced bread that has come out of the internet in the past 10 years that people have really enjoyed. So I'm happy to do that, Mike. Just got to reach out. Probably send me an IM here on Facebook, or in the alternative, you can go to my website, and then I would go to the law firm. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. Call the number or submit a request in there using the form. We see that? So I'll see that for sure, and we'll be able to get back in touch and make that happen. Let's see here. So Teresa Lynn asks about attending. Okay, so she is wanting to know if she's required to attend school full time in order to get full time BAH, or just in general. And the answer is yes and no. So there are some instances where, let's see here. There are some instances where a veteran might be able to attend school in a limited, like not full-time basis. And there are certain instances when that could happen that may affect the amount of your BAH, where you might not get the full-time amount. However, be aware that there's an exception for that, and it is for veterans who are, the reduced work tolerance. And so in instances where a veteran, I have some clients that have needed to use that program. Now, if you do need reduced work tolerance, there are there has been historic confusion within VRE about how to do that. And the general gist of it is the VRC would need to send a request to your VHA doctor to review, or nurse practitioner, whoever it is, that is your primary care provider, to then review. And then once that gets reviewed, if they approve it based on the criteria that the VRC hopefully provides, then you might be approved. That's not always a guarantee. So kind of buyer beware that it is a thing that VRE does screw up quite a bit. So, but on the flip side, yeah, there's a way to do it. There's a way to get full-time BAH as long as you're approved for reduced work tolerance, to then get the full amount, even if you're like half-time. But as long as it's, meets certain criteria, then you could do that. So I hope that answers that question. And otherwise, what's required? Do you have to attend? So yeah, the answer is no, you don't have to attend full time. Additionally, you may be eligible to receive full-time BAH even if you're attending part-time in certain circumstances that will require a clinical letter from your primary care provider, most likely, or a consultant, depending on how the VRE program wants to do it. Hope that helps. Let's see. Next questions we have here. I will only be using VR&E. Does that what does that financially provide? There's a question from Bruce Lamar. Great question, Bruce. So if you're a person with no dependents, I believe the subsistence payment monthly, assuming you're going to school full time, is maybe 750 or something. I don't know, 700. I can't remember exactly what the exact amount is. It's not a lot. If you have any GI Bill entitlement remaining, I would encourage you to use that. Meaning not the GI Bill, but mention to the VRC that you have that entitlement remaining. And then potentially you could, let's see here, you could potentially, I'm going to try to get this to work. And by work, I mean, I'm going to see if I can get these comments to appear. It does not look like they want to, so that's kind of frustrating. Okay, so I can't get the comment thing to work. Whoa. Oh, well, I'm just going to keep talking then, I guess, and I'll explain everything that I ask. So Terry and Nikki, I see your questions. I will come back to that later. I have some other questions I'm going to go through first. And once I get to those questions done, then I'll get to yours. So the next question is about financial support. You get the subsistence payment, then they cover tuition, books, and fees if you're approved for long-range training within some kind of academic program. If you have GI Bill entitlement remaining, then you could opt for the higher BAH amount that VR&E provides, which is the equivalent of what you would get through the GI Bill, which can be a very significant difference. So, for example, if you're in like New York, San Francisco, somewhere like that, you're going to get in the upper threes up to maybe $4,000 per month. But if you're out of GI Bill entitlement and you have to rely on VRE only, then the VRE amount is $700 or something. It's really insignificant, and hopefully Congress will increase that amount at some point, because right now it's just not consistent with the needs of veterans at this point, unless they have the remaining BAH, so or GI Bill entitlement. So I hope that answers that question. Oh, also Bruce. So if you attend a public school, they'll cover the tuition there. If you go to a private school where the cost of tuition is above, I believe it's $35,000, maybe $45,000. I think there was a recent change, but definitely $35,000 is considered a high cost school, and so above that you have to get certain unique approvals. So food for thought there, and otherwise, yeah, I hope that answers that question. If you have more questions, Bruce, feel free to reach out. So Noel Hickey asks, deadline for graduation and taking, okay. So this question deals with getting licensure after completing school. So depending on what the goal is with VRE, I would argue that you're not done with your vocational plan, assuming that licensure or some kind of certification is reasonably necessary to complete that plan. A good example, and the example I'm most familiar with, is becoming an attorney. So you cannot become an attorney with only training in school. You have to complete the licensure in your state, which is called the bar, pass the state bar, which is I believe it's, usually 2 to 3 days, depending on a bunch of different variables. So it can be onerous and time consuming and all that. So normally with licensure, you can't work in that profession until you complete it. So I would argue that a veteran cannot be deemed rehabilitated until they're at least minimally qualified for that job, which you can't be if you're not licensed. So that's probably true with nurses, with physicians, probably clinical psychologists, stuff like that. So I hope that answers that question. Noel, if you have any other questions, let me know. Then we have a longer one here that I believe it looks like we addressed in the forum, so I won't go through that. So basically, the self-employment. So problems with self-employment. This is historically an issue, has been for over a decade, because I believe either GAO, Government Accountability Office, or IG had done an investigation into how VA was servicing veterans that wanted self-employment as an objective. And there were some issues with what happened where veterans were maybe approved for things that shouldn't have been approved in that context. And as a consequence of that, the basically the program just elected to, let's see if I can increase the volume here a little bit. So the program is now just very difficult to get self-employment approved. Some veterans do it. Most veterans give up part of the way through that process. It's gotten more difficult to get approved for self-employment in the past couple years. So just food for thought. So that's all I have to say about that. Just it's a very difficult thing. So Dane Garnica asks, what is the deal with retroactive induction, and why is it being brought up these days? Okay, great question, Dane. So VRE made a really huge change April of 2021 where they started approving more VR&E benefits for veterans where they had depleted part of their GI Bill before being approved for VRE benefits and related things. There were a lot of different reasons where VRE otherwise could have covered the training that was earlier completed using the GI Bill under a new plan. So basically, VR&E is now granting a lot of these retros, so where veterans are getting their GI Bills replenished, which is awesome, super fantastic. So that's what the deal is with retroactive induction. So it's just a really cool thing that the VRE program has changed in the past couple years. And now they're going on, they just completed year 2. So they're going on the 3rd year of doing it. And they finally streamlined this process where it should only take a couple weeks to get sorted out. And it's been great. So veterans are getting their benefits replenished. Additionally, if you're approved for VRE after wrongful denial, it's a way to get reimbursed for the tuition, books, fees, and subsistence you didn't receive that you otherwise should have had they appropriately adjudicated your case to begin with. I've been able to get many of my clients approved for this over the years. Whenever they, it's very frequent where I'll get a client who is coming to me after completing like the first year of med school or law school where they were denied and were able to get it turned around. And so then they're able to end up getting the amount that they had to cover on their own paid for or reimbursed. So pretty great program. It's been really useful for a lot of my clients. Let's see here. Next, we have Valerie. Okay, I was approved. Oh, this is good. So Valerie has great news. She was approved. Congratulations. I was approved and am starting classes on Monday. Yay. Question: Is there anywhere the limitation spelled out in CFR? I'm not clear what this means. It seems like a lot of things vary by region or limitations. I'm not sure what limitations you mean, Valerie, but I'll take a look here at the second one. Number 2, I keep seeing people posting they were told certain dollar amounts. Is this spelled out? Okay, I'm assuming what you may mean is technology for school. Okay, so this is going to deal with, so Valerie has a question basically about computer allotments. I'm guessing purchasing of a computer, purchasing of a printer, maybe ergonomic desk, things like that. Now that has evolved over the past 10 years where it used to be a lot easier to get approved for like an ergo desk and chair, for example. Like I'm still using my ergo chair that VRE approved, and I'm still using my, you see I have 2 desks actually that were paid for by VRE. Here's one. And then the second one is right here that I'm using. So anyway, it used to be easier to get that type of stuff approved. Now they require you going through, if you need an ergo desk for your disabilities, they claim that you require a permission or some kind of evaluation by prosthetics from VHA. And it's caused, there's a lot of challenges now with veterans getting support like that. So it's a little bit more difficult. Some do, but it's still hard. So I hope that answered your question. As far as tech goes, usually the rule of thumb is if the computer is reasonably required for the type of training you're approved to do, then that's going to be the computer that you probably get approved for. Usually VR&E will approve a computer that is appropriate and kind of heavy duty that'll last the duration of training rather than getting you kind of like a junky laptop PC kind of thing. Frequently veterans push for a MacBook Pro, which in my opinion are the best computers on the market. And I'll tell you, like, here's kind of an example. So I believe this one's kind of like an extension, actually, of one that I that I got when I was in law school. Believe it or not, and I graduated law school in like 2013, and so we were able to trade mine in because there was an issue. The one that I got through law school, there was an issue with it, so I was able to trade it in through the warranty. And so the one I just showed you is a Mac from 2015. So it's like 8 years old. It still works fine. I have kind of like the Velveteen Rabbit. I've unfortunately loved off the keys a little bit from typing on it, and over the years, so some of the keys are blank, but I know where the letters are. Anyway, so I like the Mac product line. I find them to be heavy duty, and they work well for me. A lot of veterans feel the same way. Those that are maybe more amenable to a PC, hopefully you can get VRE to buy you something that's heavier duty, maybe a couple $1,000s that won't break easily, because it tends to be the issue with PCs. I would, if it were me, getting like... So I use PCs in my law firm for certain things, although I usually use a Mac when possible. So I like these. If you can see it here. Whoop, oh, there we go. Sorry. So I like the Windows machines. They're metal, the metal chassis. I really like those because they're heavy duty. So that's been my experience. It's what I like. I just really, just having a machine that I know doesn't feel chintzy, doesn't easily break if dropped. That's what I prefer. So if you're stuck with a PC, I would go for a kind of a top of the line like Windows machine. I know that, or Microsoft Windows. I know that HP supposedly makes a pretty decent product right now. So, check them out. See if you can again, if it's got a metal chassis, that's what I really look for. One of my paralegals has a HP product. So, it depends, kind of, depends on what you're looking for. Now, another question here. So I hope that answers your question, Valerie. As far as the dollar amount goes, when I was in law school, I think our amount each semester was like $500 or maybe 300. I can't remember. It was a while ago. Now that was, again, a while ago, 10 years ago. So I would guess that if you're in like a graduate training, then it's going to be around 500 or more, depending on what you're going to school for. If you're going to be a dentist, so I've had clients where we've been able to get them approved for dental school after being denied, and the amount that they need is higher, because dental school requires a lot of, or I think it's called orthotrics, work with the mouth, and so they do modeling and stuff. Anyway, pretty expensive. So it depends on what you're going for. In undergrad, maybe $100 to $200, depending on what it is. But your VRC may try to keep it low when it doesn't necessarily need to be low. It depends on your situation, what you need, what you're going for. And just remember, you just got to be reasonable. It's got to be a supply that you're going to need for school, that type of stuff. So let's see. And if you need additional supplies, and you just put in a request for it and make them deny you in writing, it's really been kind of how I approach it. And sometimes the denials make sense, and sometimes it's BS, and you just don't know until you ask. Okay. So what else here? So that's the kind of general gist there. Then we have questions on appealing. Okay. So Alicia asks about appealing. I was told I don't qualify based on being in the field I, quote, belong. according to my battery of tests. I need additional schooling to sit for my licensure exam. Okay. So I guess it's hard to say with each. Usually what I do when a veteran comes to me is they'll request a case eval, which our law firm usually provides for free, because that's what we do. So if a veteran gets denied, they show us the decision letter, we look at it, we verify that they were denied, and then we provide feedback about it. And that's without a charge. If the veteran wants to hire our firm for representation, obviously it's a different story. But the general gist of it is, I usually never assume that VRE is correct on their decisions. And usually when I look at their decisions, I can almost always find an error in fact, an error in law, or just a failure to properly notify and not provide the veteran with an appropriate decision letter to begin with, where notice is not properly effectuated because they didn't follow 38 USC 5104 notice requirements. So there's a variety of different things that could go wrong when it comes to appealing. I could just give you general feedback. Higher level review is a tool where you fix the record on what was in the record at the time of the decision. No new evidence. And I use it for a lot of different reasons that I won't get into here, but basically there's a time and a place for a higher level review. When it comes to supplemental claim, if you have new and relevant evidence that wasn't before the adjudicator, then you would use a supplemental claim. Then you have a formal appeal, which I usually discourage at this point because there's a huge backlog at the board where it's taking 3 years or longer for a straightforward basic appeal. They're just not doing them very fast because of some staffing issues and whatever else supposedly was going on. Not really sure what. So you can kind of keep a claim in like a loop between higher level reviews and supplemental claims for a long time. Now, there is a theory where you can request, put in a new claim after being denied without doing any kind of appeal. And I have seen that work. I know that it's discouraged by the program. Some of the program administrators don't like that. They prefer that you go through the appellate process. I can tell you that sometimes it works and it's been effective for a lot of veterans. I've also seen instances where a veteran does this multiple times and they end up screwing up an otherwise solid appeal because they kept going back for benefits and basically getting multiple bad VRC expert opinions papering each other, and that can be difficult to overcome in an appeal. So there is no one-size-fits-all appeal, just like there's no one-size-fits-all claim for veterans. Each claim is unique and different based on your own underlying disabilities and vocational impairments and things like that. So it's kind of complicated, but I do know of veterans that appeal and win. I fought for my own case before I became an attorney and won. And it depends on your comfort level and with your time that you have. I know a lot of veterans in medical school and law school usually don't have time to do well in school and also fight with the VA about whether VA should pay for their training. So that tends to be, a lot of the veterans that come to me for help have tended to be in that camp. So it really depends on your own circumstances and as to like what direction. But generally, if you still need licensure and it's documented, and there's no question that you need the licensure in order to do what you're doing, and that is the objective of what you're doing, then it would stand to reason that it makes sense to fight back because you can't do that job without the right licensure. So I hope that answers that question. Bridget has a very complicated what is this? Voc Rehab paperwork process, 3 semesters. All right, Bridget, this one's kind of complicated here. I don't want to get into this here on the call, but maybe send me a message. There's just a lot going on. So feel free to send a message about that in particular, maybe instant message me or something like that in Facebook or something, and then we'll see if I can point you in the right direction. Let's see. So Crystal asks, can we stop the program? The answer is you can. If you want to stop it temporarily, it's called an interrupt request. And so you request an interrupt and you provide them with a date, like say 60 days or something. And that's how you do that. And if you want to permanently stop the program for whatever reason, you can disengage. That could result in needing to pay back monies to VRE. But always in that instance, I'd say coordinate with your VRC to the best of your ability. You don't want to just kind of go out on a limb and expose yourself to financial debt without really exploring your options with your counselor. They're supposed to help you with that. They may not help you, but they're supposed to. So then another veteran asks about student loan deferment discharge. Okay, so if you're in like grad school and you hit 100% and they try to discharge your loans, well, then that prevents you from completing your training and at least in continuing to use student loans, like you won't be able to use them anymore if it's automatically discharged. I have heard of some veterans delaying the discharge until they're done with training. That's not to say that it will work for you or that it will continue to be a solution, but I know that there are some veterans who request to defer the discharge until they're done with training. So it could be an option. Again, each veteran's different. Not all cases are the same. So I just proceed with caution as far as that goes. So then the next one is, let's see here. What do we got? Have you ever seen a FOIA request? Okay, so another veteran asks about doing a FOIA. So what you would want to do if you want very specific records about correspondence. Now, I've done this for some of my clients and myself, actually, but some of my clients to double check and have found in some instances, one in particular where there was documented wrongdoing, I would say, and it was admitted to in writing. We got the writing and it was, a pretty bad case. So it makes sense sometimes to request instant messages and things like that. So you can do it. You have to request a FOIA Privacy Act, be prepared to have to pay for it because some of those records are not in the traditional system of records that VRE talks about. Excuse me. So you may have to pay for it, but yeah, you can go get those. Let's see here. Where are we at? So I think we're done with these questions. It looks like we are about through. Master's degree. So one other veteran writes in, my master's degree, but my counselor told me I don't have enough money left. Okay. So instances where you need additional training to complete what you're doing. I frequently see VR counselors mislead veterans about what their options are because the counselor doesn't want to file the extension request paperwork or change paperwork that's necessary for seeking additional training or so like let's say you have you complete a history degree and you want to become a lawyer, totally kind of different, and you can't become a lawyer without law school and then being licensed. So in that instance, additional training would also require changing the degree goal. I've seen instances where that's not appropriately addressed. So just happens. And so you can get it addressed. If you get a denial, again, anyone on this thing, if you have a question and you've been denied and you just say, hey, Krause, I want to check out the free case eval and you want my team to look at it, feel free to go to benjaminkrauselaw.com, put in the request and or call, and we'll take a look. I mean, the team will look at it. I'll look at it usually, depending on my timing, and we'll at least give an idea of what we think, and hopefully that'll be informative. So it's a service we provide to veterans without charge. So I hope that helps. And then otherwise, let's see what we have here. So Nikki asked, a doctoral degree approved through VA. Now I'm having trouble getting. Okay, issue with school and reasonable accommodations. I'm in my 4th year. Oh, that's odd. Okay, so clinical psychology, hard time with reasonable accommodations. Okay. So if you're in the psychology program, then you probably know that there might be services on campus for disability services where they could do what they need to do to help you. It's good to get that sorted out when you're in school. You could also talk to VRE, and they may help you get like a neuropsychological assessment or other documentation needed, because again, they're supposed to help you with this type of stuff, and that could potentially help, get you pointed in the right direction. So hopefully that'll do the trick. And then let's see here. Yeah, that's my suggestion. Talk to VR&E and see what they'll do. They may be able to help you and whatnot. So Terry Johnson asks, what type of equipment will be purchased? It's hard to say. I know a lot of counselors when it comes to self-employment. Like I received about $35,000-ish in self-employment benefits for my law practice. That's not something that is easy to get accomplished. It took me about 3 years or something to get that sorted out for me, and I was an attorney. So it gives you an idea of what can go into it. Sometimes they'll tell you that they'll only purchase like business cards. Other times they might give you something else. So it really depends. I wouldn't say that there's a great answer that one size fits all as far as that goes. And then Patricia, exhausted VRA benefits. I was obtaining a master's. Okay. So this would be a case where I would say to have them put it in writing, meaning give you a decision. And then, if you want feedback from us, happy to do it. You go talk to your VSO. I mean, VSO will give you free help. Frequently, sometimes they know how VRE works. Other times they don't. So what I have seen is that frequently with VSOs, they'll usually take the counselor's word for it. So they usually won't push back against a voc rehab counselor. It's been my experience. So just so that you're aware that could be, a challenge. So, buyer beware kind of a thing. And, we offer free feedback too, if you want, to send us a case eval. So, those are your options, but definitely make them put it in writing. They say all kinds of wild things, counselors do. And sometimes when you make them put it in writing, they'll change their mind and give you a grant. So, it's something that does happen. So I hope that provides, an answer to what you're wondering. Now, let's see here. I'm going to refresh and see if there's any other comments here. Now, I can't see any other streaming platform other than our platform here So I don't see any other comments. I'm not sure I wish I knew where these were coming from. They're coming from Facebook somewhere. I just can't figure out where. So anyway, if you happen to get this and you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach back out. I see that we have some folks that have been adding to this list. So, here we go. Okay, there's a couple others, but I don't see the question. And then how to push complaints up the chain, 15. Okay, so how do I do a complaint? And so, sorry. So Patricia, yes, you can get it in writing, and you say, pursuant 38 CFR 21.420, also 38 USC 5104, they're obligated to provide you with a lot of different things within a notice letter that tells you about their decision and what your options are to contest it. So they're required to do it. I would put it in writing, put it in an email, and hopefully they'll get you a decision back shortly. Now, John asks, how do I do a complaint? So I've been working on a system here. There's been a lot of talk in the press under this current Biden administration and the Biden White House, where they're talking a lot about equity. Now, I have seen a lot of instances where I don't believe that VA is being honest or transparent about equity and what they're actually doing. They have like an equity board and certain things like that. But when I look through the VRE policies, I don't see anything really jumping out at me about new changes to equity. Like, what does that mean in a VRE context? So we are looking at filing complaints, and I am developing a system for that. I'm happy to create some kind of low cost or whatever guide platform that might help on that once I tweak it. So it's close. So I'll put it up. But basically, how do you push a complaint up the chain? The easy answer is send an email to the VRE officer of your location. That's the person is like the VR division chief is what they call it. And they're in charge of VRE at your regional office. Now, if you send them an email, hopefully they will address it. They don't always, and they sometimes ignore you. But if they ignore you and they get caught, they could get in trouble for being non-responsive because it's not consistent with the iCare standards or CRCC ethics requirements, which is a third party, or a variety of other things. So just want to point that out. Anyway, so I hope that helps. I sure wish I could see the other platforms because I'm assuming LinkedIn and elsewhere, Twitter and YouTube will probably have questions, but I can't see those. So if you do have questions for me, you see the website here at the bottom, both websites. So disabledveterans.org is our blog. That's where I post educational materials and information. But it's not going to be real. It's not a great spot to like reach me directly. I would say a better spot is either on Facebook through our group or just directly through our law firm website. If you have questions, that's probably going to be the better place to reach out. So that's what I would do there. And otherwise, have a great weekend coming up, and I will look forward to seeing y'all later. Take care.